We've heard a lot about the antitrust laws as being adequate to provide consumer protection in this area. I'm curious to know from either Mr. Burnham or Ms. O'Connor, who I assume you've practiced in this area, you understand antitrust law. So Ms. Livier has said that if we didn't have net neutrality, it would be highly unlikely that you would have been able to get your show on the internet. So I'm curious to know what kind of, in her situation, looking at that kind of a startup, Mr. Burnham or Ms. O'Connor, what kind of antitrust claim would lie that she could pursue? Are we talking about price fixing? Are we talking about tying? What are we talking about? What would she be able to proceed under to go forward?
Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not practiced in antitrust law, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. O'Connor.
So having been in the internet law and policy space, again, my entire career almost, working in front of the Federal Trade Commission and in this area, there would be precious few remedies available under antitrust law. Your point is incredibly well taken. The limitations for a small individual artist or startup company or individual end user to avail themselves of redress under the law would be quite limited. And the phrase that keeps coming to mind is, your antitrust law is not good enough for my internet. It's just not comprehensive enough to protect the needs of the individual end user, the rights of the citizen. Again, it is a fallacy to say the internet has not been regulated. I was at a company in the late 1990s that had not only an FTC investigation, but 21 class actions, 12 attorney general investigations, a slew of regulatory oversight for the scintilla of an idea about a data matching project. It is wrong to say the internet has not been regulated by the FCC and the FTC for years. To not act right now would actually be the change. Senator Franklin's right. To not act would be the absence of the playing field that is open and accessible to the individual end user.
Thank you. I appreciate, Mr. Burnham, your pointing out that the technology has changed, so now our providers can figure out what the consumers are accessing. I think that is a very powerful piece of information for providers, and this is why I believe that the landscape is changing and why we're here today. Now, Ms. O'Connor, you mentioned that, and several of you mentioned, Title II is really probably not terribly applicable because Title II is a public utility, and we regulate public utilities up the kazoo, so this is not necessarily where we want to go. You also mentioned that maybe we should look at Section 706, but that may not fit either, so my question to either Mr. Burnham or you, Ms. O'Connor, is should we be talking about a new title?
We would welcome that kind of policy innovation from Congress or from the Federal Communications Commission. The internet is a precious and valuable space for the individual and for the end user and for small business innovation. And I am sympathetic to those claims that these are old titles that were based in historical parts of the economy that are very different. And we do not want to slow down the speed of the internet economy and growth. But given the options on the table, we encourage the FCC to explore all of the options, all of the opportunities, and we've seen some very creative hybrid approaches proposed by policy groups and by companies, things that would combine 706 and Title II to get the enforcement abilities of both, and we encourage the FCC to consider those.